Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be talking about the dark horse inside the loot boxes. It's not exactly the Basante with regards to being a new vehicle, well, inside a branch, a new heavy branch, and having a new auto-reloading mechanic. This thing is just a regular auto-loader, albeit the first kind of turreted auto-loading British tank destroyer as well. And with regards to it being a bit of a dark horse, I kind of feel that I might have underestimated just how annoying this vehicle was to play against inside my tank review. Now, of course, inside my tank review, I'm the only one who gets to play the vehicle, aside from all of the other community contributors, and so you won't really meet them on the battlefield. You don't know what it's like to be playing your vehicles against them. And you don't have to be a genius to theorycraft what a gun like this, with its 320 alpha damage, its 2-second intra clip, and its capability to do 1,280 damage within 6 seconds of the first shot, with up to 321 millimeters of penetration is going to do to most vehicles between tier 6 and tier 9, and even still tier 10 tanks are not wanting to get shot by it. So I guess I didn't appreciate just how annoying it was going to be to see so many of these things in the matchmaker when they are a very defensive vehicle, when they are a very flexible vehicle with the tank destroyer, when they do have that fully traversable turret that can just seem to allow the vehicle to sit still, not have to actually turn the tank to break its camo, and to have kind of, you know, your 30% camo while stationary. And some absolute monstrosities, although I would never recommend to do this, might even decide to put a camo net on this vehicle to make it even more sneaky. I've had multiple games since this vehicle's release where I just feel that you didn't expect one to be where it was, and then it just completely demolishes you. It'll do 1,000 damage to you, and it's absolutely horrific to play against. Of course, I don't think the vehicle is like outrageously overpowered, because Wargaming have done enough with regards to the damage per minute to be able to balance out this tank. But I'm deciding that I want to break through this flank. I'm deciding that I want to try and get through to the west, and so I'm going to go after this defender. Maybe the defender's going to do 400 damage to me, but 1, 2, and 3, and the E75 TS help me out with the defender. That is how you deal with a defender, right? You get its side, and you also force it to expose its flank to your friends. And a big shout out to Tamals. Thank you for actually assisting me there. I trusted you, and you did not let me down. And look at what the reward is. The reward is that we've just boxed in all of our opponents, and we've not sat there. We've not allowed the defender to play that kind of pokey ridgeline role that it wants to play. We don't want to allow it to trade one shot for one shot. We're not going to be able to penetrate it reliably with the armor-piercing rounds that we had in from the front, and he is definitely going to be able to penetrate us frontally. As well, this vehicle does have 100 millimeters of frontal hull armor and 152 on the turret. It can only get up to about 200 millimeters of protection. So while we do manage to do 1,000 damage to the somewhat SM, autoloader on autoloader action never really goes very well for the autoloader that is getting shot at, right? But we do make a bit of a misplay because we get spotted by the 7032. I did not expect that. I didn't think that the 7032 would be able to spot me, but maybe they're using coated optics on that vehicle, and they were able to catch me out at a decent distance. So now that I'm down to 173 hit points, I'm going to have to be very careful in this game. But now that I know, okay, I really can't take another hit, no more risks are there to be made, then I'm going to definitely tighten down, and we're going to see what we can do. So I'm now loading gold rounds. These are 4 gold rounds loaded in this tank, and 1, 2, and 3. And this is a very well-armored tank that we're going through. We're going to fire a 4th blind. Doesn't look like we actually managed to penetrate the 4th shell. Yep, there's the 7032. He's alive and he's falling back, licking his wounds. Although those are some very substantial wounds. We just did 1,000 damage to that vehicle with those 3 shells. If we'd managed to put the 3rd in, well, 4th in, sorry, it would have been even more. It would have been the complete tank pretty much. And that's why I'm kind of thinking that this vehicle is kind of like a mini WT Alf E100, the WAFFENTRÄGER Auf E100, possibly one of the most infamous vehicles inside the game. Used to have a 6-round Jagdtiger gun at tier 10 with the same intra-clip reload. 2 seconds. Now, of course, there's a big difference between having 560 alpha damage and having a 2-second intra-clip reload, and having a 320 alpha damage gun like this, and having the same 2-second load. But the difference is this one's at tier 8, right? And this one is actually way more sneaky because it has massively better camo than the WT Alpha E100, and it's also got armor that will be able to bounce most tier 6 and tier 7s, and sometimes you're even going to pull off some magical bounces against equal and high tiered opponents, whereas the WT Alpha E100, that was never going to bounce. In fact, everybody would just load high explosive rounds and be able to go through the turret. So while I'm not suggesting that this vehicle is outrageously overpowered, I'm suggesting that it's just incredibly punishing to the point where it's very frustrating to play against. And when you are playing the tank, it does feel incredibly good when you get those kind of dream mags off. Talking about dream mags, that last one against the Centurion definitely wasn't a dream mag. We're going to advance forwards because I've got about 25% camo rating when I'm moving in this tank. And I know that the Centurion, if he's got 500 meters view range, which would mean if he was using coated optics and had an incredibly good crew and a premium consumable, that he might spot me at 400 meters. But I just feel so safe. Could never do that in a less subtle TD. This thing really has all of the tools at its disposal to be incredibly punishing in the hands of an experienced player with a good crew and with the full setup on the tank. And just look at that gun handling. It just feels like it doesn't really have much aim time. And that's because, of course, now tank destroyers can use a rotation device. Excuse me, sorry, caught myself there. And that wasn't in the game previously. So we put 1 into the Centurion, 2 into the Centurion, possibly blind. We'll have to see when he appears on his hit points. And there we go. We did actually hit him because he's down to 61 hit points. So that second one went in there. But I just feel that this tank, it just doesn't... Now with the rotation mechanism, as I was saying, that's outrageous. And we do put in 3 out of 4 rounds there in a single magazine. And when you just keep doing that, it doesn't matter about the tank's long reload. It doesn't matter that it has a 45-second reload, that you can only get down to 40 seconds flush if you have incredibly good crews and you're using bounty vents on this tank. But that rotation device decreasing the dispersion, I have a bounty one on this vehicle, reduces the dispersion by 15%, which means that now when you're turning the turret, you have incredibly good turret traverse, and as long as you're not moving in this vehicle, or even if you're moving just a little bit, it doesn't really feel like the reticle ever blooms out too much to be able to give you grief. And as we saw with the Defender earlier, let's just talk about this mag. 1 round in, are we going to be able to hit the second? I don't quite fire it. We're going to go forwards, we're going to use these bushes, and we're going to make sure that we're behind the trees when we're firing. For all of the new tankers out there who don't know how bush mechanics work, if you're sitting inside the bush and you see that it goes transparent, that means you can spot through the bush. But as long as your opponents are behind treetops like this, that will mean that we can put 1, 2 in. And is this going to be the dream mag? Oh, not quite. We're unable to hit the Tiger 2 in the back of the turret. Gosh darn it. That 0.34 accuracy actually letting me down. But just... everything about this tank seems to be so good in the hands of a good player, but also for the kind of player that just wants to chill, awkward as well to have to advance against. And oh dear, somewhat SM, don't do it. Buddy, I told him to fall back. I told him to don't do it. This is not going to go well. You're a big heavy tank with bad camo. That was predictable. Yeah, during the stream, I actually laughed incredibly hard, I believe, at that. I almost want to just giggle my face off now, although now that I know that it happened, it's not quite as funny. It's almost a little bit sad that the Somewhat SM just completely ignored our call to reason. And poor Tiger 2, that's not where you want to be. Not in front of the GSOR, and even if we miss that one, we're going to be able to have 3 extra shots. Interestingly enough, I decide to reload here, and I communicate that to my team. In retrospect, I'm not sure if I 100% agree, but you can see that at least I'm communicating that I am going to reload. I'm saying, wait please. And I'm asking the Somewhat SM also to not sit behind me, buddy. That's very, that would have been a disaster if we'd got shot down here. Because even though we're up to about 5,500 damage, including the blind fire, and 6 kills, this game is still razor close. We have an STG who's 472 hit points. That's a 1-shot for the WZ if he rolls high. And we can see that the Cannon and Jagdpanzer just hit the S1 as well. So I stopped for a second to ask the S1 if he can spot, but seeing how the S1 just took damage, I decided to take it upon myself to be the one to advance. We hit the Cannon and Jagdpanzer once, and this is where hopefully our turret is going to give us an advantage. He bounces off our armor, and we managed to put the extra shell into him. And now I'm on 7 kills. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to try and be a filthy kill stealer. I could pen here. I'm hoping that one of them puts him down and... oh dear. Was that karma? I wouldn't usually steal a kill in World of Tanks. I sound like one of those adverts. You wouldn't steal a movie, right? I wouldn't steal a kill in World of Tanks unless it was for some kind of mission or trying to pick up a Radley Walters medal, which is always a nice one to get for 8 kills. Wasn't quite to be. We managed to get 7 here. And hopefully I showed you all of the reasons why this vehicle it's just an absolute mad thing right now in World of Tanks. If it's in the hands of a good player, they can use its complete flexible nature and also that really nasty gun to be able to pick apart lots of tanks. And alternatively, in the hands of a player who's a little bit more new and a lot more relaxed in their approach, they can kind of just sit back in a bush and they really do feel like they just stop you from advancing because there's just so much threat. Their penetration is enough to go through everything, especially if they're paying to win and loading the gold. And then can you really advance into 1,000 damage in any tank that you're playing, apart from the most healthy tier 10s? So we secure an ace tanker for the 1,805 base experience. We receive a high caliber for the 6,000 damage that we dealt, including the blind fire against the Centurion. And we're going to have to make do with a top gun because Karma gave me a slap and said, no, QuickyBaby, thou shalt not steal kills. And even though we fired a wealth of premium rounds in this tank, and I can tell you this tank is exceptionally good paid to win because of the 50% extra penetration upgrade and pretty much 50% extra shell velocity upgrade that you get for loading APCR in this tank, we still make 226,000 credits profit because Holiday Ops got the boost up to 50% by now, running a credit booster, which I seem to be receiving a lot of them at the moment from ranked battles. And it definitely makes me realize that the disparity between the free-to-play players and the pay-to-win players at this time of year when they're running their premium accounts, premium tanks, credit boosters with the Holiday Ops, you could just fire only gold and only use premium consumables and you're still going to be making a healthy profit. Now, I'm not saying that is what you should do. There's a reason why they say make hay while the sun shines, and don't use premium consumables and gold rounds unnecessarily. Try and make absolute bank during these Holiday Ops seasons. Maybe you could even invest the credits into crew books. Think about it like this. 10 games like that would be a big old boost for any crew. And so if you've got any tanks that are on the cusp of being able to get Brothers in Arms or Sixth Sense, then maybe now is the time to do it. So all in all, the GSOR 1008, I don't think it's as toxic as the old WT-Alf E100 was. That thing with its 2,500 damage per magazine and incredible stopping power was definitely ruining tier 10 in many ways more than this tank was. However, this thing, it just feels less vulnerable, and its magazine is still pretty much half the capacity of the WT-Alf E100 was, and the fact that this thing is faster, with 11 degrees of gun depression, and has gold rounds that are nearly as good as the old WT-Alf E100 was at tier 8, yeah, I think this is about as close as it can get towards that old tank that was removed for a very good reason. So Wargaming, please take note. This thing is already starting to push the boundaries of balance, and don't take it any further. There's a reason why the WT-Alf E100 was taken out the game. And this thing is right on the cusp of definitely becoming an incredibly toxic tank, if it isn't already one. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about the GSOR 1008 in the comments down below. Have you managed to get one of these vehicles inside the loot boxes? Do you think it's awful? Do you think it's great? What do you think about playing against them if you haven't managed to get one yourself? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.